And we are live. Hello, everybody, to another episode of our weekly FreudenFreude live stream, where we bring you content to help you grow and develop as a person and as a leader.
Hi, I'm Sandra Corona.
And I'm Claudia. We
are coaches.
Yet another epic synchronization fail, but eventually, people, we will get there. So bear with us. We practice this once a week. Okay, great. So I am a professional coach working with entrepreneurs, corporate leaders, as well as their teams in tech and beyond.
And I am a coach for expats, for leaders, and young professionals.
Good job this week, Sandra. Okay, excellent. Let's get started. Big topic today that is in all the news and in all of our social media. It's the advent and maybe let's say not advent, but the maturing of artificial intelligence. This show here is airing at the end of March 2023, and ChatGPT in particular has been around for about 5 months. Still new, but it has been put through its paces, as one could say, and it has been just revolutionary. Yes. Actually, allow me to open a parenthesis. I'm a techie. I can't help but to check things out like that as they come available. And 2 minutes of like just couple prompts into using ChatGPT in the primitive manner in which I did back then, I was like sitting back and I turned to my husband and says, you know what? Life and education and work is never going to be the same again. There's going to be a world before this, and there's going to be a world after this. I mean, it was so clear to me, so clear to me. And my sense was one of wonder and excitement. Of course, there's a lot of challenges, and we're going to touch on some of those today. But the feeling I got reminded me of when I was at university, sitting in a computer lab and browsing the internet for the very first time. Yes, I'm dating myself. I know. And I had a colleague of mine show me that this thing called Mosaic existed and what it was all about. There too, I had this sense of wonder and excitement and endless possibility. Because remember, now the internet is so like part of our world that we don't remember what it was like when you went to university and you didn't have the internet. All you had was one book. We had only had your one textbook to learn something. You didn't connect with your people through some app. You were in your little private bubble, and all you had to communicate at distance were letters and a phone. And phones were expensive to use long distance back then. Yeah, I was at university in the US. My parents were in Luxembourg. Mind you, my dad tells me to this day how painful those phone bills were. So same sense of wonder, a before and an after. Sorry, I monopolized this, but it's kind of, I wanted to get that anecdote out there. So what's your take? Why did you propose maybe or agree that we would talk about this?
Okay, so I think it's very clear you are a techie person. And I thought I was a techie person because we both studied the same thing. However, I found out that I am more task-oriented. And as a task-oriented person, I question everything. And I mean everything. And I started looking at how people were starting to do their own little research about how AI was going to play or not play a role in their careers. One of the biggest problems that a lot of gamers and graphic designers saw in this past 2 weeks was that AI generated portraits, and it created music. It wrote poems. It wrote all of this, like it did marketing. It did everything. And I started to think, wow, how is this going to affect every admin job? How is this, what is the extension? Like I was starting to become aware, because I didn't worry when we had the chatbots, right? Chatbots were like, whatever, dude, I'll just call and I'll talk with a live person. Is that it was no longer the chatbot, that it had become this thing that everybody got crazy about. My first reaction was like, no. Artificial intelligence is not good. It's not a good thing. So I wanted to I have to find a weakness, but I did find it. I found it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely always have been a very much higher level, big picture person. You know, so for me, that's the view that I took. Of course, there's incredible ramifications, and you're talking about admin jobs. I'm talking about any kind of entry level job.
Yeah.
Any kind of white collar job, any kind of support job, and even, I mean, beyond that, what is this going to do, for instance, to social media when this tool makes it so easy or easier to create content? What is the actual value of a piece of content going to be going forward if it's all generated by the same kind of things?
Yeah.
And I would suggest to, this is where I came to at this point. We have to figure out as a species how we add value beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is like what. So all this, we have this TOM, if you remember this acronym from way back when, a totally obedient moron, which is a computer, right? So you have this Tommy model, and it is, for many intents and purposes, and I do not want to get into a philosophical thing, but it is intelligent, right?
Yeah.
It can put pieces of information together that were not together before. And it does it in quite interesting and, under double quotes, intelligent ways, right? So
yeah.
it does really, really a good job. So, however, what we can't do is outsource our own discernment, our own sense of values, our own sense of the value of authentic communication, of presence, of connection. And we will touch later on coaching specifically, where I think presence is kind of like the one thing. No chatbot is ever going to create a psychologically safe space for exchange and reflection. I really don't think so. It's a purely human thing. It's a purely human thing. So what, again, how do we add value? And for instance, you add value by how you communicate with this tool even. I would say that the way that I write prompts, the way, for ChatGPT now in particular, the way that I formulated the information that I get, the specificity of how I interact with this tool, with my knowledge and my experience, makes it create a different output than if it's a 16-year-old person who doesn't really maybe put that much effort into it, just doing a high level kind of prompt. Right. And so again, how do we leverage our experience, our views, our opinions, and so on in the way that we interact with the tool? And I really think that we can be a little bit directive in it. I give you an application example. When I do writing, for me, I'm not a writer. It's very challenging to start with an empty page.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I put a lot of care, for instance, sometimes to ask ChatGPT to come up with a first draft of something. Mm-hmm. And I might then edit every single sentence or delete whole paragraphs or whatever of this output that it generated. But for me, it sparked something to overcome this fear of the blank page. It got me started. It gave me something to change.
Right.
And actually, for me, that has been up to now my most used feature of artificial intelligence. It's to generate something close enough to where I want to go to then go and edit. Indeed, I have to tell this. So Sandra, allow me, right? But I ordered my author's proof copy of my book yesterday. So yes, if I give it to go ahead next week, my book is going to be on Amazon in about 10 days. And so it is team coaching. What is it? And is it right for me and my team? So I was all excited. Let me close that parenthesis, blurb done, but in all the excitement that it engenders. So,
yes.
sometimes, I take great care, and sometimes to ask ChatGPT to give me one paragraph, I might write one page of a prompt. And you might think that that's counterintuitive. Why would I put so much care into having this tool generate something if then it's more work than writing the thing from scratch? Right? You might think that, but it's not really so, because what I do when I create a prompt is that I really deeply think about the topic. What is it I'm going to say? What am I going to emphasize? What am I going to de-emphasize? What am I going to provide as what is the context of this query? Who is the intended audience? Who's going to read this? How is this reflecting my preferences and values? And value is a strong word, but my preferences, my writing style, my tone. I package all of that. And by doing that, it gives me clarity, because if I were to just write a paragraph from scratch on the white page, maybe I wouldn't always be so absolutely deliberate about who I write for, what exactly it is I want to say, right? Yeah. So it's tools that can help us and make us grow and be more intentional and reflective. Can you imagine? Reflective. And then it gives you information in a way faster and easier format than ever before. So instead of going to do a Google search, which is what a few months ago I would have done, go on Google, do a search, look at a number of websites until I find the information that I seek. Now it's faster, right? And actually you can ask the tool for attribution and URLs where it found information. So it is possible, okay? So you can go and double check. And it's not all bad. That's what I want to say. It's not all bad. I understand where you're coming from, and it has huge ramifications, but it's not all bad.
I want to say that I agree with you. Change, we all need change. There's always going to come that time where the world demands change, and we've seen that. And I don't know if there's a time for things the same way as there is no time for having children, right? You just do it and let, things happen and they will take care of themselves. Well, I don't know. I think for me, it's because I do, if you think about how many people have been laid off from Microsoft and Google and Meta, and I think soon Microsoft too. It kind of makes you think, what are the reasons for this, right? We don't know for sure. It could be related to AI. It could not. I don't know. But it just really makes you think. It makes you think about how people, instead of fearing the same as let's say that I'm fearing the future of people. So I'm thinking, what is the best way, like you said before, to adapt this to you and take advantage of it? And so I asked myself, I think 4 questions. I asked myself 4 questions about ChatGPT because my purpose as an I in Global Disc is to find what's wrong with something. That's my purpose, is what can go wrong. And so I found 4 things. Let's say 4 things. And one of the questions was, can ChatGPT learn from users? Yes. So that is a good thing. But then also you think about when you go into a website and you're getting help from the ChatGPT, and how many times are you going to talk with it? Probably not more than 1-2 times in a year, right? And it's going to be in different pages. So learning from you is not easy. It can make mistakes, period. It can make mistakes. Number 2, how precise is ChatGPT? Not much. They've actually discovered mistakes. And I'm happy that it makes mistakes, but what I'm saying is that nothing is perfect. We're not perfect, therefore a machine is not going to be perfect. So it can give you vague answers, it can give you wrong answers, it can deviate completely from what you're saying, or it precise. But then what happens when it's very precise? You're going to go with it and you're going to say, oh, this is fantastic, this is really good response, I love what it said. Then it's like, where can I prove this information? Where did it pull it from? It does not give you the textbook references that it pulled it from. Now that you used it a little bit for your book, can you say that it provided you? Because that's what I found. It said no book references. Did you get the book references where it pulled out the information that it gave you?
Well, I, for instance, this morning wrote, I was looking for statistics on psychological safety. I posted something on LinkedIn about statistics on psychological safety. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, give me some statistics, give me a few statistics about psychological safety, its benefits and its costs. So not just the positive, but maybe also the negative of it, with source and attribution and the URL if possible. I set it in my prompt. And it gave me the things. And then, yes, I did go and I checked them and I read those things. Because I really don't think that we can, it's a tool. It's a tool. Yes. The same way then we stopped I hope that most people stop believing what one single person said on social media or on a blog or whatever, and went and did research into alternative views of doing this. Just now, because ChatGPT came, we should not just trust one source.
Correct.
And so that's what I said earlier. Let's not outsource our critical thinking, our discernment. We still discernment and quality control and all those kind of things, which doesn't make it. We just have to have that as a natural caveat. And I think that it poses a huge challenge. Again, alluding to the example I gave before, you and I have learned different ways of dealing with information and double checking and reading up and cross-referencing and seeing the pros and the cons and things like that, because that's what we were taught. That's how we have trained our brain. But what about all the young people that use ChatGPT to do homework? How are they going? They have to be taught. They have to be taught how to use it, to go and not only rely on one source and do all that other stuff. And you mentioned earlier in the previous point that ChatGPT is not always accurate. It can't be, because it's not discerning, right? It's a tool that compiles information based on available data. And so it has more data than any tool ever used, because imagine this thing has read every book, or every book it could get its hands on, every blog post, the Library of Congress, and everything from the Bible to the works of Shakespeare to the most futuristic kind of out there survivalist blog post. It has read it all. It has read it all. And then, how do you make sense out of all that information? You kind of need to be a machine to be able to digest even just a fraction of that. So again, judicious use, and not letting stuff, not taking stuff at face value, right? Not taking it at face value. Right. And again, the young people need to learn that.
Right. Another thing that answered my question was, can ChatGPT offer empathy or sympathy? And this is where is my biggest focus, because as coaches, that's what we do. That is part of our practice. We are there for them. We offer them support, communication, connection. We build strong bonds with our clients. They're not just clients, but they're not also friends. They're just somebody that we bond with, right? And so when I ask that question right before we started recording, it's like all day I spend my whole day thinking there has to be something that it does wrong. And finally hit me, I'm going to ask that question. And the answer was no. It does not offer empathy. It does not offer sympathy. So if you're expecting it to help you in a humanistic way, where you're looking for support and help, and if they offer in psychology, a psychiatry, or some kind of support, consider it support only.
Right.
Don't take the answer as the response, as a solution. Right.
That's what I said earlier too. It's not going to be able to create and hold that space. It's not going to be able to ever replace coaching in the way that you and I know coaching. On the other hand, and you see, I'm playing devil's advocate here the entire
I can see that.
On the other hand, I think it was Steve Chandler who had this analogy of the lamp post. If a person were every day as they were going home, stopping at this lamp post that's on the way and telling it, this lamppost, this inanimate object that just happens to be there, telling it his or her sorrows, taking a moment to reflect, taking a moment to rest and maybe just be in silence. If that person were to do that every single day, just in front of that sign, that lamppost, the person would probably feel better. Okay. And unfortunately, there's a lot of lampposty type coaches in the world. So beware, not every coach is a good coach. That to be said, sorry guys, but lamppost coaches, good, that's a new one. In any case, so the, sorry.
It's okay. I love the lamppost.
And so, but as it comes to this deep connection, a deep human connection, you can only get from another human.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
I fully believe that. And, because otherwise you could do self-coaching by reading a book. You could do stuff by looking at whatever. It just doesn't work that way. Sometimes you do need the human connection and that sense of truly being understood, not only on a cognitive level, but on a heart level, on a belly, on a visceral level. This sharing of more than just words, this sharing of humanness.
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely, I'm with you on that.
Another thing that I was wondering, I was talking with my husband. My husband has an answer for everything, so I don't know if this is going to be worth something. But I was telling my husband that one of the things that it said is that there could be plagiarism, right? Two, that I was telling him, okay, if the concern is also that you might find the same answer more than twice, imagine a professor. I told my husband, okay, imagine a professor that has 3 classes of the same course, and he's asking for a report on history. Okay, you can imagine that at least 300 students are going to go to ChatGPT and ask the same question, right? What are the chances that more than 2 or 3 people are going to have the same thing in their response? What makes the difference is what you were saying, is how you define your question, how exact you are and precise you are in structuring your question is the difference in what you're going to receive as answer. And 2, you should only use it as a base to start and to finish.
It is,
right?
It is a very raw first draft, right? And maybe if it's a report about some historical or cultural thing that they have to write on, I wouldn't plug in the question that the professor asked. I would maybe ask, give me a series of highly acclaimed research papers on this subject with attribution and URLs, if possible, that relate to this thing. The same, I would just make the searching and the maybe even the summarizing of information more efficient, because I think that ChatGPT actually does a fairly good job at summarizing long form documents. So if you have, for instance, a paper, you can ask it to maybe pick out the high points. It's really, really good at that. And then, so if you read a whole paper and you want to have a summary, maybe you can ask ChatGPT and then from your recollection, double check that, yes, indeed, those were the high points, and then add some, take some out, always work with it, and then take it forward. And so I let you finish your list. Yes, I agree.
Actually, that was it. And then the two examples that I gave you when we were talking about it during this week, where a doctor decides to use ChatGPT to understand its capabilities, right? To know how much he can use ChatGPT. And I would say kind of also trying to see if ChatGPT can actually replace a doctor, what's it called? A diagnosis, exactly. And so he started asking the machine, I think it was like, I'm not going to lie, no more than 5, no less than 3 patients. It asked the questions, it entered the issue that the patient was having, pain where it was, and where it was located, right? Where at least the patient was saying it was located. And so it would give an answer for all of 5. And out of those 5, it got 4 wrong. And the other one, it was right, except that if he would have treated that patient with the diagnosis that GPT gave him, it would have killed the person because the person had underlying issues.
Right.
And so, it kind of makes you think, okay, at least doctors for now are safe. And then I was telling you about the video that I found, and I actually have it. So maybe a girl that, well, tell you what, why don't you share what you were going to say? And then when you finish, we can share the video.
Okay, I just enabled sharing for you, and actually let me make you co-host, just because if I were to drop off for some reason or another, then at least the whole stream does not collapse. Okay, so regarding the doctor thing, I mean, even a doctor, I think, even if they propose a diagnosis, they have taken into account several that offered themselves as an option, and they came up with one. Maybe the idea here shouldn't have been diagnose, but offer 5, 10 possible diagnoses that might be appropriate. And then, the doctor with his, with his overall knowledge of medicine, his human intuition facing the patient and so on, could do it. Because I also have asked ChatGPT, incidentally, if you need more information to answer this, let me know. Because you can also do that, if you ask for something, you can tell it, in order to refine this answer, what questions should I answer? And so, I mean, be intelligent, people. You have to be the intelligent one in order to use tools like that. Yes. So if you want to share something, go ahead.
Yes. What matters here is that people need to see their value, what they bring, and stop believing that they can be replaceable, because in reality, we are not replaceable. You make yourself replaceable by resisting. And once you put resistance, you're going to block your head and you're not going to advance. So just think about that. Okay, let me share it.
Yeah.
I think it's funny. So here we have this guy right here. I'm going to return it. Can you hear it?
No.
Hold on.
No, there's no sound.
No, and there's no sound. Okay. Okay. I think, well, you can read the,
Okay, why don't you read the things for us, because it might not be easy for people to read it on the screen. So why don't you play it and read us the captions?
okay. Can you see that?
Yeah, can you read it for us?
It says, okay, so the person is saying, we believe you cheated because we believe you used ChatGPT to write your perfect 50-page essay. And you're going to see that the girl starts freaking out. It was a flawless 50-page essay, but we all know you can't speak English. Please don't cry. It's a pity that it's such a prestigious university. There's so much racism. He's like, no, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. This is America, a country built on racism. And what she's looking in her lap is the response that ChatGPT is giving her to respond to the professor. So it kind of tells you, oh, so you did use ChatGPT. And then on top of that, you're using ChatGPT to respond to the professor because it's convenient for you. So
yeah. That is funny. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it brings it also back to just in this case, authenticity. Right, that you use the tool to write a paper is one thing, but that now you are in an interaction and you kind of default to answers and whatever that are given to you by this machine, by this artificial intelligence, that's kind of outsourcing too much of who you are. And so I think that but I mean, what have people been doing that have been trained by interview specialists and consultants? They have also just regurgitated, canned kind of responses when they presented themselves in interviews. That's always happened. Now it just happens in a much more streamlined fashion, and it is maybe more attractive to people because it's readily available. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, we'll have to figure out sound issues like that for future episodes.
Yeah, I was wondering. Oh, anyways, I think another thing that it helps, it's going to build confidence in people. That's for sure. Maybe a little bit fake because it can only last so much, right? Because you can write and it's going to be like, oh my God, this person is so smart and they're writing all these things so good and blah, blah, blah. But then when you are asked questions in real life, that's really where the real test is going to be. So that's why we say that it's very important that, yes, you get responses from ChatGPT, but you continue to use your genius, your mind, your creativity. We don't want that to end, which is something that a lot of posts do talk about. They talk about the good and the bad about GPT. And one of them, the biggest concern, is that creativity is going to stop flowing like it does. Is people are going to start feeling scared and they're going to feel like what they create is not going to be enough anymore because this is such an amazing machine that they're going to feel obsolete. So there's a lot of people that are feeling and sharing that sentiment. And it's important that people don't stop thinking. That's what's going to make you indispensable at work. Of course, nobody's indispensable, but at least you're not going to be let go that easy.
Yeah. I mean, I talked earlier today with a friend of mine, and her significant other is a composer, right? Genius creator, and very well known. And so I mean, if somebody were to feed this is not ChatGPT, but some music artificial intelligence, everything that this this very prolific composer has created before, and all the voices of the singers, and everything that is in this huge CD library now of creations that this musician has done, what would a tool like that create? And it's scary to think about that, because the thing is, how the question here is, how will, or is it possible for an audience to know the difference? I think that is kind of on an ethical standpoint a little bit that we have to address as a society and as humanity. It's like, what do we put in place to protect certain things like intellectual property? Right?
I think okay, so one of my biggest references always is that based on what other techies, even Elon Musk and all these guys out there, when they create something, they use Star Trek and Star Wars as reference to kind of say, oh, well, they already introduced, remember the little thingy to communicate. I can't remember what's it called. It would flip. And then the computers, and then they came up with data, right? Remember data from Next Generation. What I've been noticing is that even in the year 2500, 2700, computers have a limit. And computers can only do so much. They can do statistics, they can do give you solution options, okay? But you can also see in the movie AI, where Will Smith is really sad because it was him and a girl drowning. And one of the machines decided to save Will Smith because it decided based on the statistics that Will Smith was the most likely and easier to grab and closer to survive than the little girl. Okay, then you look at the machine, a computer. Oh, when they use computer in Star Trek, it always gives you a response, but it never gives you I was telling you yesterday, the human factor of the desire to survive, of the feelings and the emotions. And then data, when data tries to be human, he learns how to play the flute, he learns how to play the violin, and you hear it and it's beautiful. But the real knowledgeable people of music will tell you this is trash because there's no feelings.
Yeah, and it was always a very interesting thing to see how this android tried to become human, and that it was his greatest wish. And he was able to some way of sensing connection, and he definitely cared for his teammates and his cat and things like that. But there was something just he
that's spark.
I think psychopaths maybe feel about that to a certain sense, that there's something they just don't get. Yes, they have obviously feelings because they care about certain people, but in general the way that they interact with the world is different, and something is missing. I mean, even we don't need to go as far as that. We all interact with our world in different ways, and we are all attuned to certain scenarios and not others. I can tell you a number of let's say more C-type people, and we're talking disc here, okay, more like C-type people that would have a hard time, like your quintessential engineer, cubicle engineer, if you want to think about it that way. People that are very onto data, very about doing a good job, and they cannot communicate and have no attunedness with this guy that is outgoing and the life of the party and the quintessential I, and being the center of attention and things like that, right? It's like already those two human people taken at the extremes, because we're always an amalgam of all these various personality types. So I'm just giving an extreme example here. But, people like that, they would like, what?
Mm-hmm.
What? Right? And so I think that this is the same thing. There is this not understanding. There is this not being able to take that into consideration, that then models like ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence models, they cannot be taught and they cannot do it. It's beyond their capabilities. And so I think as humans, and sorry if I'm reiterating this, it's just my current state of perception on this, is we have to figure out what makes us truly unique. And because so much of the menial, task-oriented, stupid, boring, tedious tasks can potentially be done by a well-trained AI, it frees us up to bring our truly unique humanity, our truly unique creativity to the table.
Yes.
Okay, the way that what we focus on, what makes my point of view may be different from yours, and so on and so on. And I think we should see this as such a wonderful opportunity to potentially make that happen. That's all nice and good. But if we were to shift our focus just for a second on what you mentioned earlier, is the effects onto the workforce. Yeah, it is, I'm just looking how much time we have already talked, because it seems like forever. Oh my God, the hour just there's a lot of jobs now that, especially entry-level job, or maybe let's take an example of low-level administrative jobs. Let's take that as an example that will be changing. Or an entry-level copywriting job.
Data entry, yes.
Data entry, but copywriting. Like there are people whose job it is to write little posts for LinkedIn, for a company or for an individual. And now I think, if well directed, tools like ChatGPT can really do a good job with that. So what happens now to these people? Because it's not like somebody still has to drive the tractor, as they say, right? Somebody still has to interact with the machine, and the more you do it, the better at it you get, and so on. What I'm seeing as a challenge here is, who is going to replace the senior copywriter in a few years? If the senior copywriter gets promoted, what happened to potentially the skill set of the entry-level copywriter that prepared them in terms of discernment and knowing what is a good post and what is a not so good post, and all these kind of things? And how would I write one from scratch if ChatGPT is offline? Yeah. So because it happened like last Monday, ChatGPT was out. It's like, oh, something's missing. Yeah. Like, because all of a sudden when you wanted it, you wanted it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so it goes beyond really what I can intelligently talk about. We would need some workplace experts who have given much more thought to it than I have. But there's some serious implications of this in terms of, and these were these types of jobs, but I think even how is this going to impact innovation for companies? And
Yeah.
So it goes so far, and I do not want to. I'm quite ill prepared still to really talk intelligently about it.
Right. We're talking based on the boom that happened in this last month, right? And I do believe that one of the things that does and needs to exist is to put some policies in place. I'm pretty sure people are already thinking, like, what are the limitations? How far are we going to go with this? And, I do believe that that's very important, that there's a limit and capability access based on where you are. So, for example, if you're at work, you need to use your full-time creativity. When you're outside the office, what you do with ChatGPT, it's your thing.
No.
Yes, that's my thing, because you are already getting rid of your people. Yes.
No.
Think
But
about that.
you cannot say. I mean, you can't just not use it. It is here, and it is here to stay. You have to adapt. There's no way, and it doesn't make sense to say ChatGPT stays outside the walls of this company. That would be that's not acceptable. You have to bring it and use it, and use it well, and get the maximum out of this new tool set as you can. You really have to adapt it. They can't say don't bring ChatGPT or don't use ChatGPT for your homework to students anymore. You can't say that. It's not possible. And
no.
What
I'm saying is that, for example, when you are creative, when you're in the office and you're creating a design, when you are made to write an article, when you're something that is related to creativity, I think that's where the limit should be. I'm not saying that it should be completely abolished. I'm saying that there has to be a limit where probably the director, the manager, the leader, whoever it is of that department says, I'm okay with you using ChatGPT, but do it as a tool, not as the answer. Because like you say, I mean, it's impossible. Companies are going to look how to replace people. That's the truth. They're going to do that. Okay. And I don't know how to see that, but it's going to happen. We can't prevent that. But then the people that stay have to use it wisely. They cannot be dependent of it, because then the ones that stay, then the manager is going to be like, then why did I make you stay if you're still going to be using ChatGPT for everything? See my point?
Yeah, but see, it's like you have to be good at using ChatGPT in order to get the maximum benefit of it.
Smart, yes.
As well. Mm-hmm. You have to be smart to have the tool, be more succinct in its answers, more directive in its answers, and get you to make your point faster. So there's levels of interaction, right? It's quite a tricky thing, and it's too new as well to really go and do this. I truly believe that it is here to stay. We have to figure out how to leverage this technology in very unique ways. Because frankly, if you take your example that you had before of the history professor, when we had the one textbook to guide our research into the history, what wasn't that one textbook everybody was using as well? But then, right? But then on top of it, you had to actually think about it. And I think we're sounding like a broken record here. You have to still think. You have to still
Correct.
be your spark
Mhm.
and embrace this new technology as something that can be a sparker of your inspiration,
Yes.
as something that maybe suggests a new perspective that you might not even have thought about. Like
Mhm.
when you're brainstorming, when you're innovating, maybe it allows you to find things that until now were in your blind spot. Take it as a suggestion, not as a rule, as a suggestion, and
Mhm.
explore and think and play with it and so on. Right. And I think that that can be very interesting. But yes, I mean, we're going to see such changes in the workforce. There's going to be a lot of debate happening over the next months, years, in order to come into this new era that we are just very early adopters of now, and see where that leaves us. But again,
Yes.
I am not concerned because I'm not a lamppost coach. Thank you. I'm not too concerned about, AI replacing coaching. There are coaches out there, and I'm sure you agree that coaching for them is going through a list of questions,
Mhm.
a pre-compiled list of questions, and maybe coaches like that would go to ChatGPT and say, I have a client who has relationship issues because he became enamored again of his ex and is thinking about whatever. Give me questions to ask during a coaching session, and ChatGPT is going to say yes. It's going to spit you out 20 questions if you asked for 20. Right?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's not the kind of coaching that we're talking about here.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
We're
Correct. Yeah.
talking about asking questions that ChatGPT would not think about asking.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I think also, when you have a problem, when you have an issue, what you want is to have a conversation, not be typing, because on top of that, you have to focus on your problem. You have to be typing the answer. Maybe there's going to be a voice GPT. I'm pretty sure it eventually happened, right? But, right now, what is happening right now, I do also believe that when it comes to coaching, there's a logic in the process, and not every coaching style is going to fit one person, right? And so I think that, we're safe. Now, before we end, Claudia, I'd like to invite you to tell us again the name of your book, where to find it, and give us more information, whatever you can, about your book, because I'm going to be the first one to buy it as soon as it comes out.
Oh, thank you. You're going to be the one, I guess. Yeah. So, but just letting finish this conversation. I am sure that we are going to talk about AI more in the future.
Yeah.
What this discussion brought up for me is that I will need to think about certain aspects much more. And so, thanks in any case for staying with us. I hope that we brought up some little nuggets here and there, though, that might have been of interest to you guys. So yeah, my book, I'm a team coach, an accredited team coach, as well as a leadership and executive coach. And I wrote a book that I thought was missing in the market, and it is called Team Coaching. What is it, and is it right for me and my team? It is geared towards leaders and all of those who care about teams. They might be stakeholders, they might be teammates themselves, that want to know more about team coaching, What is it? What is it not? How is it different from individual coaching? What are some scenarios that have shown that team coaching is appropriate, and so on? What does the process look like, etc., etc.? So it's about 200 pages, 204 to be correct. And like I said, I ordered my author's copy, which is kind of like a proof copy, the first printed ever version of the copy, yesterday. It's going to take about 5 days or so to get here, which I will then review. And once I give the go ahead, it will be available across all Amazons worldwide. Yes. So I will post about that on LinkedIn for sure, with balloons and everything. So
yes.
yes.
Great. Well, I'm going to be waiting for a video that you're going to put out there, a short, to talk about your book, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of people. If there's a gap and you saw it and you were able to write a book based on that gap that you noticed, there's a lot of people that are going to be interested in that.
Because there's, like in coaching, there's a lot of misinformation out there. Team coaching as a profession is relatively new. And, some people still do mistake it for facilitation, for consulting, and so on, but it's quite a unique approach. Right. And, all the team coaching books that I know that are out there talked about strategies that coaches use, meaning they are meant for coaches who want to become team coaches. And the intended audience for this one is different. Yep, definitely. We're going to talk about it. Thank you for letting me talk about it, because it's very exciting. And
so, it's your baby.
Yes, my first. The next ones are already in the works. So because I found I actually quite enjoyed it. So this was it for today. We are going to come again with more on AI. If you have any feedback or suggestions, maybe about future topics related to this that we should explore, if you want to be on the show and give us your feedback, get in touch with us either in the YouTube comments or anywhere on LinkedIn or our websites. And we will be happy to take this conversation further, because it's not going to go away anytime soon. Yes. Otherwise, if you liked what you heard, please show us some love by subscribing to the channel, giving us a like, and posting a comment, engaging in any way that you can, and that would help us out a lot. Tell your friends too. Thank you, Sandra. This was fantastic. I really had a lot of fun.
Thank you, Claudia.
It just went by like that. Crazy.
Yes. Thank you, Claudia. You have a lovely day.
Yeah, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.